friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be gush festing about one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. Now it has taken me some months to just sit with this series, to allow myself to process all of the emotions that this series elicited in me during the year and a half that I read it. I am still not over it, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to try my best to convince you guys to read this series if you haven't already. And of course, I will be talking about the City Watch sub-series of the Discworld by Terry Pratchett. Now, the Discworld is made up of over 40 different books, all of which take place in the same world, which is the Discworld on top of the giant elephants on top of the giant turtle. It's fantasy, don't ask questions. Now within the Discworld, there are certain kind of sub-series of books that follow a similar group of characters or surround a specific character. One of those sub-series is called The City Watch, and it is made up of 8 different books. Guards, Men-at-Arms, Feet of Clay, Jingo, The Fifth Elephant, Night Watch, Thud, and Snuff. Now there is kind of a central character that is the through line through all of these books, and we meet him right away in Guards. His name is Samuel Vimes, and he is the leader of the City Watch of the city of Ankh-Morpork. Now before we get started in my personal thoughts on the series, I do want to read you guys the dedication in the beginning of Guards, just because I think it just kind of encapsulates the whole catalyst for this series. They may be called the Palace Guard, the City Guard, or the Patrol. Whatever the name, their purpose in any work of heroic fantasy is identical. It is, round about chapter 3, or 10 minutes into the film, to rush into the room, attack the hero one at a time, and be slaughtered. No one ever asked them if they wanted to. Now you guys know that I love a motley crew, and Terry Pratchett just gives me everything I want in spades when it comes to that trope. It kind of slowly builds over the course of the series. Several of the main characters we do meet right away. Like I said, in Guards, we meet Commander Sam Vimes, who is this stalwart, very justice-minded captain who's got his own demons that he is trying to run away from. Now, when we first meet them in Guards, the City Watch has been getting off pretty easy. They just have, the way that the city politics work, it's not always landing within the letter of the law, but they're willing to kind of look the other way if it makes sense, or if somebody has the right paperwork, and if it makes their job a little easier. Now, striding into the middle of all of this is new recruit Carrot, a massive, like 6.5 foot tall human man who was raised by dwarves outside the city, has memorized the law book, and intends to see it followed. Of course, that alone means that hijinks ensue, and there's a lot of morality questions that immediately get raised. Now, this whole situation reaches a boiling point when an actual legitimate dragon starts terrorizing the city, and the City Watch is called on to actually do their job. Now, with that synopsis out of the way, look, I know a lot of people talk about that they don't like humor in their fantasy books. They don't like satire in their fantasy books, and I completely understand that. If I'm being totally honest, I am very, very skeptical of satirical fantasy books also. However, Terry Pratchett won me over 100%, and I want to talk about why. I read a ton of really dark, gritty, emotionally driven fantasy, and I love it. I always will love it. I always have loved it. But I don't think I realized how much I needed exactly what Terry Pratchett was putting down in these books until I finished the series. And I sat with it for a little while, and I realized that one of the reasons why this series worked its way so deeply into my heart is because Pratchett understands the plight of living on the earth as a human to such a minuscule degree that he is able to create these characters that are, yes, funny, but also so relatable and represent different struggles and different maybe vices that each of us have, in a way that never feels like we're being lectured to. It never feels like we're being talked down to. It never feels like I'm being hit over the head with a theme sledgehammer like so much modern fantasy does today. It really elicits a strong connection, immersion, and a way for you to feel like you are part of what is going on in these books. That you've been there, you've met this person, you have a neighbor like this, you've struggled with a lot of these same things that many of the City Watch characters do. And yet he doesn't do it in a way that feels heavy. I don't leave these books feeling like I have a weight on my shoulders. And I feel like a lot of the dark fantasy that I have read in the last few years, I walk out of them and I feel that weight. I feel heavier walking out of those stories. I never felt that once with Terry Pratchett. He asked me to come into the conversation. He asked me to look at humanity and all of the goods, bads, and uglies that are included in it and just sit with it and just enjoy the story and to just enjoy the what if of fantasy. I think at its core, at its heart, one of the most beautiful things about fantasy as a genre is that it invites us to get excited in the discovery of new worlds. It invites us in to go on a treasure hunt almost of what if this were possible? What if the world looked like this? What if this type of race of creature really existed? And all of those amazingly fun concepts that we've come to know and love in fantasy. It invites us into that treasure hunt, and then it invites us to take whatever gems we find and bring them back into our reality, to bring back something new that we've discovered about ourselves in discovering this new place and these new characters. And I love that, and I don't think I have ever read an author in my life that embodies that more than what I've read in The City Watch by Terry Pratchett. I do want to go back to the humor for a minute because I do feel like this is a really big turnoff for a lot of people that haven't tried Discworld yet, that might make them a little bit hesitant to jump in. What I love about Terry Pratchett's humor in the City Watch series is that it is super intelligent. It has that sharp, cynical wit that I have loved about British humor for my entire life. I grew up on a lot of that. I love it. It has that very Monty Python sketches kind of feel to it. It's so intelligent. It's not dumb humor. It's not the type of gross sexual humor that I feel like gets leaned on too much in a lot of other fantasy series. There's such a wide range of humor in these as well. There's the funny kind of street humor. There's the like bittersweetness of humanity humor, both good and bad, where it kind of makes you sigh because you're like, yeah, that's true. There's so many different styles of humor in these books, and it's all layered above these deep themes through every single book has something to say about society, about life, about time, about how we treat each other, about how we wage war. There's so many of those amazing deep themes that we all crave in fantasy, but again, they don't feel heavy. I don't feel like I'm dragging an anvil around with me as I'm reading this book and leaving the story feeling depressed. I leave the story with that thread of hope, with that thread of joy, with that thread of it's still worth fighting for that I often don't get in the other series that I read. Now, if you ask me to pick an absolute favorite of the series, I'm going to have a hard time doing that. I do need to go back and reread the first few books just to kind of read them now again that I know the whole story. Men-at-Arms #2 was the one where I realized how much this series was going to mean to me and how much I was going to love it. I enjoyed Guards, but Men-at-Arms really solidified this series is going on my top 10 of all time. By the time I got through to about 5th Elephant, into Night Watch, into here, I knew that this was going to be pushing some of my favorite fantasy series out of the way, and when I completed it at Snuff, which is the 8th and final book, I knew 100% that this was my favorite fantasy series of all time. The amount of emotions that this series took me through, the amount of just desire to go back and reread this and make it a comfort series. It already is a comfort series just on my first read through. And I was worried that as I got through the series and as I got to the final books, that maybe it would feel unfinished. I was really, really worried about that because unfortunately Sir Terry Pratchett did have dementia, and we don't know how many Discworld books he would have finished had he been able to keep going. And so I was a little worried that Snuff was going to leave me on the precipice of wanting more. And when I started this book, I could not have been more wrong. The final book in this series, I think, just encapsulates Everything about this series that I love, and also a hope for the future. It leaves us on a note of looking forward, of being joyful, of having that sense of what we're fighting for and why. And I love it so freaking much. The way that Terry Pratchett introduces these characters, I'm a huge sucker for phenomenal character introductions that give you an entire picture of the person you're looking at or the creature you're looking at with like a few sentences or a paragraph. I'm a huge sucker for that in writing. And you have characters that just come off the page. Obviously Vimes, Carrot, but also characters like Corporal Nobbs, who is also one of my absolute favorites in the series. He was a small, bandy-legged man with a certain resemblance to a chimpanzee who never got invited to tea parties. His age was indeterminate, but in cynicism and general world weariness, which is a sort of carbon dating of the personality, he was about 7,000 years old. This series really has everything you could possibly want in it. There's combat, there's tension, there's mysteries, there's murder, there's heists. There's a beautiful love story through this series that is one of my favorite romances in all of fantasy ever. And yes, I know, everybody always thinks that I hate romance. You guys, this one right here, this one in the City Watch series, the main one, I'm just telling you, if you want to know the kind of romance that I love to read in fantasy books, that's it right there. Every kind of fantasy creature you could possibly want. There are dragons, there are werewolves, there are vampires, there are zombies, there are trolls, there are like literally anything you could possibly want. There's golems, everything you could possibly want packed into this fantasy series, and Terry Pratchett does not waste an inch of the floor space that he is given in these books. What I've been kind of building up to say through these last few months since I finished it is that this is the kind of fantasy that I think we need more of right now. I think it's easy to get caught up in the dark and forget to turn our faces to the light every once in a while. And I feel like the City Watch does exactly that. It doesn't shy away from the dark. There are some sections of this series that do get very deep and very dark in terms of character theme, in terms of just the events that happen, but it never turns its face completely away from the light. And to be honest, that's something that I want to see more of in fantasy. I want to see the what if, the joy of creativity in fantasy, the gems that we bring back on the treasure hunt in discovering a new world and asking why not? Why not have these things in a fantasy book? And Terry Pratchett does that with such a masterful hand. He doesn't put anything in these books that is useless or doesn't need to be there, and every single book left me so hungry for the next story. And now that I've finished, all I want to do is turn around and go right back into the series again, reread them, and do it all over again. Now, the last thing that I will say is if you are an audiobook person, I cannot, and I know you guys who have been listening to me talking about the series are so tired probably of me saying this, but the books are amazing. Please read them. And also, if you like audiobooks, please check out the audiobooks that are done by John Culshaw, who is a British impressionist and comedian. You guys, he brings this series to life in a way that made me a believer in audiobooks. I am not an audiobook person. I don't enjoy listening to audiobooks most of the time. I really struggle paying attention to audiobooks. And John Culshaw is the only narrator that has hooked me, hook, line, and sinker, kept my attention through 8 books in a series without any trouble at all, and that's a feat. So if that means anything to you, if you're an audiobook person and you enjoy having a narrator that just brings a world to life in a way that elevates the original source material, please listen to the books with his version, because I think they're phenomenal. Peter Serafinowicz voices the Death, the character of Death, in all of the Discworld, the new Discworld audiobooks, also phenomenal. Bill Nighy reads all the footnotes, amazing, also phenomenal. And it's just such an incredible work of art, all told, between Terry Pratchett and these phenomenal voice actors. That's all I have to say at this point about City Watch. I'm sure you guys will be hearing more about it, because this series is officially my favorite fantasy series of all time right now. I don't think I recognized how much I needed what the City Watch books brought into my life this last couple of years during a time of a lot of personal life unrest for me. And I love them so much. I can't wait to reread them. I would love to know your experience with them. If you want to put it down in the comments, if you haven't read them yet, let me know what's kept you from reading the Discworld or the City Watch specifically, because I'd love to know. Let me know anything you want about your opinion of this series. I look forward to chatting with you guys. I hope you guys are having a phenomenal week, and I hope that no matter what you're reading, that it encourages you to face the darkness with bravery, but still keep turning your face back toward the light. And I'll see you in the next video.